and not asking, but directing them to, quote, consider giving up a weekend to join, I guess, him and his family at a nearby place at an event called Creation Fest for the weekend, where they would be celebrating the fact that our Earth is 2,500 years younger than the Sumerians and Babylonians actually learned to brew beer. He also stated at the end of it that negative RSVPs would be taken. But commonly, just recently, right before I left to go to Tahiti 2 weeks ago, an Air Force captain contacted me, indicating that he was forced to go to a funeral for another member of the U.S. military, not in his unit. That was a funeral where everyone in the audience was massively proselytized by members of the U.S., by chaplains. The laity, meaning everybody in the U.S. military and the chaplains now, I mean, forget Father Mulcahy and MASH. Those days are long, long gone. To begin with, he's a Roman Catholic, which means he can't have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ and he can't be a real Christian. I'm told this all the time. They don't seem to understand. I gave a speech in front of thousands of evangelicals about a year and a half ago. And at the end of the speech, it was dead quiet, unlike here. And the head pastor came out and said, "Well, are there any questions for Mr. Weinstein?" I was, of course, looking for the nearest exit, and there was nothing. And finally, this woman in her late 30s, they gave her the microphone, and she had a very strong Southern twang. I won't say in which state this happened, but she said that she had nothing to say about what I talked about regarding the Constitution and the military, and that she didn't think anybody in the audience would want to. Now, mind you, there were several thousand people there. But here's the mindset for you. She asked me, look, after your people, the Jews and the Romans, killed our Lord Jesus Christ, and that's when I knew this was going to go. His body was put into a cave with a rock in front. After 3 days, Mr. Weinstein, they moved the rock away, and his body was gone. And I'm waiting, and the look was, well, what more did you want? And, I looked at her, and I realized that if we were able to communicate with the other side 1,000 times better, we would then qualify to be two ships passing in the night, because right now, ladies and gentlemen, we are two starships in separate space-time continuums on different ends of the universe. Because, of course, I thought of 8 million things I could respond to, but I don't even remember what I said. I just looked at her going, okay, this is useless. And having a discussion like that on an airplane that I just flew back with, that's perfectly fine. When it's your boss and it's your military boss, it's really, really different. Ian asked the question, how widespread is it? No, I'm not Al Gore here tonight. I'm not here with an inconvenient truth talking about a tipping a point in 18 to 25 years with global warming. We've tipped where all the nukes are. I don't know if we can get it back. I don't know, but I'm going to damn well try, and I'm asking you to consider, like I said, for our call to action, help me fight. We have formed the weapon. Forget writing letters and making phone calls. That's nice, but those are just weed whackers. That knocks them back for 5 or 6 days. We're going to go to federal court, hopefully 3 weeks from tonight, where we're going to lay down a withering fire, kick ass, take names, and leave sucking chest wounds on this unconstitutional heart of darkness. Mark me.
Oh, all right. Just a last question, because I want to get to Q&A. I first came across this when Pat Tillman was killed, and a friend of mine, Robert Young Pelton, had spent a lot of time with the Special Forces, and he said they were heavily evangelized. But it turns out that the first officer that investigated, in quotes, the killing, which was the first of 3 cover-ups, when he met with Pat Tillman's mother with the body, and apparently Pat Tillman was an atheist, and he was in constant correspondence with Noam Chomsky, of all people, who's about as far to the left in our political lexicon as you can be. And he was also apparently organizing his fellow Rangers to vote against Bush and to condemn the Iraq War, which he thought was illegal, although he felt that the war in Afghanistan was justified, and that's why he gave up his football career. So he didn't want a Christian burial, and the officer handing over the remains to the mother says, "So your son's nothing more than worm dirt."
Yeah, you're talking about Lieutenant Colonel Kozlarek. I understand he's a West Point graduate. His response to the media regarding that, in confirming that that's what he said, was that, look, I don't know what this Tillman family wants, how much more they want. I guess if they had the appropriate faith in the Lord, they would know that Pat was now at the right hand of our Lord. But since they don't have that, he's nothing more than worm dirt. Which is an astonishing statement to make.
To his mother.
But, I had General Wes Clark in my house not too long ago for a fundraiser. And he told me, he said, you know, Mikey, you're fighting the right fight because the people that you're fighting are the most wretched combination that he had ever seen of two human traits of heartlessness and zealousness, and that's just the way it is. I'm sorry, that's the way it is. And by the way, this isn't a I look at our Democratic Congress. We all put them in there with a mandate. They haven't done much of anything. Hello, C-SPAN. And this is I had a full-time lobbyist. We had to give up on that. It's useless trying to go into Congress. This is an issue. I mentioned David Iglesias. You know, until that thing happened, we didn't know that we had 150 graduates of one of the worst law schools in planet Earth's history, Regent University Law School, awash in the Justice Department, did we? Well, until I started this fight 42 months ago, what I'm saying is that we have dominionist fundamentalist Christians who feel that it's very, very critical to help out Jesus and use whatever we have at our disposal to bring about the end of the world. And they're wearing the uniform of the Marine Corps, Navy, Army, and Air Force. They're up and down the chain of command. And as I said before, when you're a second-class citizen, because necessarily so many of your constitutional rights have been abridged to be able to create this lethal fighting force, you're also extremely vulnerable. And the members of the military are not going to call the ACLU or the ADL. They're not going to call People for the American Way or Americans United for the Separation of Church and State or the Southern Poverty Law Center. They're all great organizations. I belong to all of them. They're going to call us, and we move as quickly as we possibly can and as forcefully as we can. But as I said before, we have to be militant. The last thing we can do is that we're able to do is to go back into federal court. Have you seen the Supreme Court decisions in the last several weeks with faith-based initiatives? And you see, I mean, you know, one of my law professors at McGeorge School of Law here up in California, Anthony Kennedy, I don't know what's happened to him. But I know that we lost Sandra Day O'Connor, and I know that one of her famous statements was, the First Amendment is not a law of convenience, and we do not count heads in this country before enforcing the First Amendment. When I've had people in the military say, Mikey, the U.S. military is 90% Christian, of course it's going to look pretty Christian. As I said before, it could be 100% Christian, and it shouldn't make any difference. And that's what we're trying to fight for.
Questions?
Thank you.
We have a sort of Phil Donahue.
We do have some microphones.
There we go.
Wait until you're called on.
There's
one on each side.
There we go.
Speak right into the mic.
Just a quick question. The general who talked about being the right to evangelize the unchurched, what was the response from higher-ups or others? What was the news?
It's a great question. My wife and I immediately raised our hands and said, excuse me, U.S. Air Force, we have 3 kids in you, and 2 of them are Jewish, our sons, and our Christian daughter-in-law, who during her time at the Air Force Academy was approached by the Commandant of Cadets, a born-again Christian, former Thunderbird pilot, who asked her to go out and please harvest non-Christian cadets and bring them to Ted Haggard's New Life Passion Play. This was in his office during the duty day. I was waiting for a response, so we raised our hands and said, would you please tell us, do our kids qualify for this Richard Nixon era enemies list of being unchurched? And if so, we demand to know, are you or are you not going to exercise your reserved right to evangelize our 3 children who wear the uniform? We went on radio, TV, and print for 88 days. We beat them up in the media. I hired yet my 10th law firm to meet with the Air Force Secretary and the General Counsel of the Air Force. The Air Force Secretary at that time is Pete Guerin, formerly right-hand man to right-hand person to Donald Rumsfeld. He's now the Acting Secretary of the U.S. Army. We have some amazing videotape of him. Just keep watching 3 weeks from tonight before we go back into federal court again, I hope. They wouldn't give an answer. So on the 89th day, we sued them. And we sued them in federal court in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I had to sue in my individual capacity as a taxpayer. We didn't have the foundation yet. We then got 4 second lieutenants, the most junior, all of them just out of the Air Force Academy, not all of them Jewish, who joined in, and an Air Force professional recruiter, a sergeant, who'd been told to use Jesus Christ as a recruiting tool to get more people into the military to fight the war. And we knew we had a fairly weak case on standing, but it takes a lot of intestinal fortitude to do this. The pundits thought we would last about 6 days. When we lasted 2 days later, we reached out to the the Air Force, which was being defended by the Department of Justice with those wonderful, wonderful Regent University Law School graduates.